Okay, let's go over the answers to your group quiz and you can grade yourself. All right, so um, here we go. Three truths and two lies. Three of them are true, two of them are false. Find the two that are false. Arc sine is equal to inverse sine. These mean the same thing. Two different notations for meaning the same thing, so that's true. 1 over sine is cosine. No. 1 over sine is cosecant, CSC. 1 over cosine is secant. True. 1 over tangent is inverse tangent. No, remember that little notation of the that -1 that looks like an exponent. And normally when you bring something -1 power, you do take the reciprocal. But this, unfortunate that whoever came up with the notation used the same notation, but they did. And that just means this means inverse tangent, not the reciprocal. And then sine over cosine is tangent. That is true. So your two false ones were B and D. Cotangent of 35.6. You don't have a cotangent button on your calculator, so you should have put in 1 over tangent of 35.6 degrees. Make sure you're in degree mode to get the correct answer. This one's sine of 35 degrees, 12 minutes. You should have gotten 0.5764. There is a button on your calculator for you to hit in degrees and minutes. Cosecant of 4, so this was degree mode. This is radian mode. Let me show you on B real quick. In case you have issues. Am I in degree mode? I am. Okay, so you're going to hit sine, and then you'll do 35, and then you get the degrees and the minutes by this button right here. Degrees, minutes, seconds. Hit that. See how the degree symbol is underlined? Just hit enter or the equal sign. And then 12 minutes, so hit 12. Hit that degrees, minutes, second button again. But arrow to the right now so that minutes is underlined. Hit enter. So now it's taking the sine of 35 degrees and 12 minutes in degree mode. Hit enter. And that's where I got the 0.5764. Okay. Make sure you're in radian mode for this one. Cosecant of 4, that's for radians. We don't have the button for cosecant, but that's 1 over sine. So you should have just hit 1 over sine of 4, but in radian mode. And then cosine of 8.04. This is radian mode also. And so those are the answers there. Finding the measure of the acute angle theta in 2 decimal places. Inverse sine, you got to make sure you're in degree mode for theta. Should have gotten 18.72 degrees. For inverse cotangent, you needed to write inverse tangent of 1 over 1.5678. It's not 1 over inverse tangent. You will get a wrong answer that way. And the way you can see this is this can be rewritten as cotangent of theta is 1.5678. That means the same thing as this. And then cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, and that's what I need since I don't have a cotangent button on my calculator. So tangent of theta would be 1 over 1.5678. And then you can do theta is equal to inverse tangent of that fraction. So that's how I got that. All right. Finding the measure of argument x between 0 and pi over 2. That's radian mode. Make sure you're in radian mode for this guy. Both of these were degrees. This guy's radians. Inverse tangent, you can just put that straight in your calculator. Cosecant, though, you have to rewrite this guy. So I would write it as cosecant of x is equal to 5. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so that means sine of x would equal 1 over 5, and then x would equal inverse sine of 1 over 5, and again, radian mode. And then you should have gotten 0.2014. 0.2014. Transforming this equation so that x is in terms of y, you should have gotten x is equal to 4 over 3 pi inverse cosine of y minus 2 over 4 minus 1. Graphing the original equation, graphing this guy, you should have, well, your a was 4. To get B, well, no, we got B. So to find the period was 2 pi over B, pi over 4, which is like 2 pi over 1 times 4 over 3 pi. Well, that's not friendly at all, is it? 8 over 3. So I'm not going to change that to decimals because if I do, it's a repeating decimal. Not okay with that. Your C value should have been, I don't know what. B was, I should have just written that. B was 3 pi over 4, and then that's how I found the period. C is the -1 since it's x plus 1. So that's where the -1, there's the start of my period. And then D was +2. So I shifted everything up 2 units. So that's my new middle. So here was the first point. The period was 8/3. Starting at -1, your increment length would have been the period 8/3 and then divided by 4. Oof. 8 over 3 times 1 over 4. That's what, 2/3? So -1, which is like -3/3, plus 2/3 gave me -1/3, plus 2/3 gave me 1/3, plus 2/3 gave me 1. And plus 2/3 gives me 5/3. If you do 5/3 minus a -3/3, it'll give you the 8/3. So this was the one period of my graph. And then finding the first 3 positive values of x when y is 3. I drew a little line. Here's when it's 3. The positive ones, this guy's negative. So you needed this, this, and that, which corresponded to 1 point, let me slide this up, okay, 1.11, 2.23, and 3.77. Remember that you only put this guy in your calculator first. And when I did, I got 1.3181. Cosine is positive there. Cosine is positive here at 1.3181. It's also, cosine is positive also in the -1.3181 direction. So that's where I got these two values to plug in to my formula. Make sure you put parentheses around the 3 and the pi. Otherwise, what it'll do is it'll divide by 3 and then multiply by pi. You'll get a completely wrong answer. And so I went 4 divided by 3 pi times the 1.381. And then minus 1, I got this guy, which is over here in the negatives. So then I added the period to find another value. I got 2.2261. I went ahead for good measure and just added the period again just to see if maybe that would be a value also. Plugged in the -1.3181 into this guy, multiplied it times 4 over 3 pi and subtracted 1. I got this guy, which is over here in the negatives. In fact, it's even past this guy. And then I added the period, which was 8/3. I got 1.1072. Added the period again to get this guy. And the first 3 positive ones are these 3 there. And then I just rounded to the nearest 100th spot, so to the second digit there. All right. You see how many points? I made this one worth 2 points in case you got like one of them correct. I gave this B1 2 points because maybe you got the x values right, but you didn't shift it up or something. Things like that. All right. But all the rest of these, the reason why it's worth 21 points, the rest of them I made worth 1 point. On the back side, this steamboat problem, I made this sketch of this graph worth 2 points. And they told us that, let's see here. Paddle wheel turned, a point on the paddle wheel moved in such a way that the distance d from the water's surface was a sinusoidal function of time. When his stopwatch read 4 seconds, the point is at its highest point. So when your t is 4, you've got 16. That's the highest, that's the maximum. The wheel's diameter is 18 feet, right? So that means that the radius of the wheel is 9. The radius of your wheel is what will give you your A value. And then it completed a revolution every 10 seconds. When they tell you it completes a revolution, that gives you the period. So they gave me a value of 4, and I was at the max. Add the period 10, brings me over to 14 to the end of my period where I'm back up here at 16. And so cutting it in half and then each of those guys in half, there was my one graph of one period of that revolution. Checking your values 4, 6.5, 9, 11.5, 14. You do have to include those T values on this horizontal axis. Since it went up to 16 and the diameter is 18, 16 minus 18 brings you to the -2. That gives you the lowest value down here. And then 7 is in the middle between. The other way you can do is your A value is 9. 16 minus 9 will give you 7. 7 minus 9 will give you a -2 value for this Y value there. All right, so when we go to get the equation, your A value is 9. A value is always the distance from the maximum to the middle and from the middle to the minimum. All right, that'll be your A value. It also corresponds to the radius of, if it's a Ferris wheel, or this one is the paddle wheel, it's always the radius. Your B, I figured out was pi over 5 because they gave me the period was 10. I set that equal to 2 pi over B. I got B as pi over 5. The first value they gave me was when T is 4, so that's what I'm going to use as my C, because I'm going to say that's my first tick mark of the period. That's what we'd use. And then your D is 7 because that is the middle Y value. Always do the middle Y value for the D. Right? And we knew 16 was up here. We knew the diameter of the wheel was 18, which meant that it went all the way down to -2. Halfway in between would be 7. So D is 7. And so we put it together. D is equal to A times cosine of B times the quantity T minus C plus D. How far above the surface of the water was the point on the paddle wheel when Mark Twain's stopwatch read 5 seconds? You just plug a 5 into T. Into my equation here. Should have gotten 14.28 feet. Make sure when you put this in your calculator, when you hit cosine, it'll start a parenthesis there. Make sure you end it after the, 5 minus 4 ended up being 1, so you only had to do pi over 5. But if this is another number, make sure you end the parenthesis there before you add the 7. Otherwise, it will give you, if you're getting domain error, it's probably a parentheses issue. Cosine of, well, that one wouldn't give you a domain error. You would just get a wrong answer. Oof, that's worse. At least with domain error, you know something might be wrong. Okay. For part D, transforming the equation so that time is a function of distance. That's where I just start undoing it. I got 5 over pi times inverse cosine of D minus 7 over 9. Quantity, right? And then plus 4. That'll give you your time. And then they wanted the first 3 positive values when you're at the water's surface. Yeah, well, the water's surface is when D is 0. Right? So you want the first 3 positive values. Well, you're going to be, wait, the first 3, which the point was at the water's surface. So yeah, you're going to be somewhere here and here and here. Those will be your 2 values. I probably didn't graph this quite right. It probably goes something like that. All right. So you've got this equation solved for T. You should have gotten 0.08, 0.792, and 10.08. How did I do it? I've got this guy. I'm putting in a 0 into the D so that I get -7 over 9. You're going to only put this part in your calculator, right? And you should have gotten that this guy is 2.462 to there. Well, then I know that cosine is a negative value also in quadrant 3. This is a -2.462. Make sure you're in radian mode on your calculator. All right. And so then I plug that into this guy. You got 5 over pi times this guy plus 4. You should have gotten 7.92. I went ahead and added the period just in case. I always do that. Whatever value I get, I'll add the period to it just in case. Usually at the first 3, though, well, I shouldn't say usually. It depends on the problem. right? Depends on if we got a negative value here. But anyway, so plugging this guy into here, you go 5 over pi times negative 2.462, and then plus 4, you should run 0.08. Adding the period to that, you get 10.8. The first three, the smallest positive values, bump, 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 bump. There you go. I made it worth 2 points in case you got one of them but didn't get the other two. All right, that's the quiz. Go ahead and grade it, right? And then answer the questions on, do you need any more clarification? If it's a quick answer, I'll just reply to you. But if it's a more complicated one, maybe you come see me in office hours, or maybe I record another little session of me answering like the most common questions. So, all right, I hope you all are having a fabulous day. Have a good one.